be an embarrassment.
It's going to be a bloodbath. I don't even know if I want to watch. I'm starting to feel sorry for Pence already. It's not going to be a pretty sight. I don't know that I've heard Pence say string more than 5 sentences together. She was on the debate team here at Howard University. She was made for a time such as this. And so I don't know how you debate a debater if you're not a debater.
She ready.
Yeah, she's ready. And we're ready.
Let's take a look at the weekend review, the top stories that have made headlines in the country, in Africa and beyond our borders as we speak live by way of Zoom to international relations expert Abel Oyeyo. Abel, many thanks for joining us on Bottomline Africa today. A lot has been happening around us and with, around us. Let's begin with Tanzania. First of all, the Tanzania general elections is just less than 3 weeks away. But this past week, we've seen the main opposition presidential candidate, Tundu Lissu, have his presidential campaigns suspended of what the National Electoral Commission says is election, uttering, rhetoric. The company complaining about his rhetoric on the campaign trail. They went ahead to suspend his campaign for 7 days. Talk to us about the situation in Tanzania just ahead of the elections.
Thank you so much. Hello, Michelle, can you hear me?
I can, Abel. Go ahead.
Yes, I think it's quite unfortunate what's going on in Tanzania. We've always expected, as Kenyans, we've always looked up to Tanzania as a model of, a forward-thinking, accommodating society. But what's happening is quite unfortunate because the same claims that are being made against Tundu have been forwarded a couple of times to the National Election Commission of Tanzania by Tundu and his, supporters a number of times, but they were all disregarded. But for some reason, CCM has complained, and these guys have suspended his campaign for 7 days, which effectively means it's going to be a one-man show. It's just Magufuli, and who is running against Magufuli, basically. So it's quite unfortunate, and I know there's a lot of tension as we speak because the supporters of Tundu are not impressed, and there's some kind of despondency and despair. It's like the race has been lost. So it sends a bad signal to the rest of the continent, given the kind of progress we've made in so many countries as far as electoral justice is concerned. And I think what we are lacking is pressure from other, countries like Kenya and even Uganda and Rwanda, Burundi. They need to make phone calls and tell Magufuli that what's going on is not okay. We need to see practical democracy where political parties are allowed to compete in a contest without the kind of games Magufuli is trying to play. Obviously, then the Electoral Commission is now in the hands of Magufuli. So it's now the
And that's what observers say, that the ruling Chama cha Mapinduzi has total control of electoral machinery and has control of the Electoral Commission. But let's talk about the events that have happened in the campaign trail. We had in June the Chadema party leader, Freeman Mbowe, attacked by thugs in Dodoma. And Tundu Lissu himself has been attacked as well. And we've had several members of the opposition attacked. And many have been asking, is there potential for violence after this election?
Well, Tanzanians are not known for violence, and the organized, I'd call it organized cases of violence, of course, being orchestrated by the ruling party, which is meant basically to scare these guys from consolidating his content from Tanzanians, which could have sent Magufuli packing. So what they're doing is trying to, they want to scare them away so that on election day, it's only the Chama cha Mapinduzi guys who can go and vote in Magufuli, and then, it's done. And it's quite unfortunate, but I have to say that the election is as good as lost for the opposition. And that is one of the problems I think most opposition political parties have in Africa. They don't work together. If the entire opposition was united in Tanzania, the kind of, monkey tricks Magufuli is playing couldn't have been, played. I think it would have had some kind of fear. But you see some of the guys who went complaining against Tundu are also, opposition political parties who understand the kind of, unfavorable climate the ruling party and Magufuli have created. So it's now a case of opposition parties being sent to actually push against a fellow, opposition politician.
All right.
So it's unfortunate, yes.
And of course, I mean, President John Pombe Magufuli, of course, declared victory over COVID-19 sometime in July, but other countries are still very much observing COVID-19 containment measures. And so that means that there will not be international observers, at this election. What are some of the, issues that could go wrong or could go unchecked in the absence of observers?
I think when it comes to COVID-19, it's good to give the devil's due. There is a big difference between the kind of management we had here in Kenya and so many other parts of the continent, vis-a-vis, what happened in Tanzania. There was an element of transparency. There was dedicated, efforts in the battle against COVID-19. And I've been to Tanzania about 3 times. The last one being, I think, 4 days ago. They actually don't have any kind of restrictions. They don't have the kind of, observances we have here, like masks and social distancing. They're very confident. Well, I have to tell you that I didn't see anybody, being buried because of COVID-19. And the kind of fear we have here, which of course was created to solicit funds, which were later stolen in Kenya. In Tanzania, it's not there. So in terms of COVID-19, the climate is totally different. It's positive, it's encouraging, and I think for that one, I think Magufuli has to be given credit. It was handled very well. And I think even during the campaign trail, as you can see this campaign period, we've not seen a spike in COVID-19 cases, meaning they have it under control, evidently.
All right. Let's talk about, other than Tanzania, Abel, what's been happening in Mali and Mali's post-coup mediation process. We've seen the military now appointed to key posts in the transition government, but also a serious insurgency crisis, a French hostage being released in exchange for terrorists who are in prison. Let's talk about that and what the situation is in Mali.
Well, Mali is a side state, and what we've had what we call crests and troughs, the moments of peace, and then from there, it degenerates into violence. And the French are a bit different. Sometimes they compromise too much. If it were the Americans, of course, they couldn't have had that kind of exchange where you have people being released, and then in the exchange you release terrorists, and it's likely to get worse. And it points to the weakness of the continent as far as, tackling of our challenges is concerned. We have to wait for support from outside. So our security as a continent is in the hands of foreigners. You realize that African countries, bordering Mali have not taken serious effort, to move in and help. That is why these, militias can move in and cause the kind of disruption we're seeing.
Well, there's been serious questions as well about the role of religious, regional institutions such as ECOWAS and their involvement in solving situations such as the one in Mali. How would you rate ECOWAS's involvement in these negotiations?
Say that again?
Let's talk about the involvement of ECOWAS in the negotiations, because there's been a question of the role of regional institutions and regional blocs such as ECOWAS when it comes to dispute mediation and peace and conflict resolution as well. How would you rate the involvement of ECOWAS in the Mali situation?
Now, ECOWAS is very solid, and they've been involved, I think, from the word go, not just in Mali, but in so many other countries, West African countries. When there's a crisis, they always move in and try to help. It happened in Ivory Coast, it happened in other places like Niger and all that. But the problem we have is there's weakness in all these regional bodies, whether it's ECOWAS itself, whether it's SADC, or maybe even our own East African community. They're weak. They're very weak. They don't have a security force. They don't have the required financial resources to, to move in and help when it's needed. And of course, most importantly, there's what we call the high moral ground of, moving in to help when you know very well that you're coming from a position of strength. Most of these guys who had ECOWAS, these regional bodies like ECOWAS, come from places where there is inherent injustice, inequality, lack of democracy, corruption. So the moment this regional body goes to a place like Mali and tries to help, the militias and the guys who cause trouble always look back and say, hey, you're from, for example, let's say Nigeria where there's a lot of corruption, you're from Kenya, and that kind of thing. So they don't have the kind of force you'd expect to help mediate or arbitrate the conflicts we see around. So there's need for there's need for security force in each of these regional bodies. There's need for financial strength so that when they have to do something in a particular place where there's a problem, they have what it takes. So far, we don't have that.
All right, Abel. And further afield, of course, the U.S. election fast approaching. Tomorrow will be the vice president's debate. And so we'll have Kamala Harris versus Mike Pence taking it head-to-head. We had, Trump and Joe Biden do the same about a week and a half ago. What is to be expected in this debate, and how do you think it's likely to change the voters or swing the voters ahead of the election?
Are we talking about the vice presidential debate?
Yes, we are.
Well, I expect, of course, Kamala Harris to do very well. She's a very, very solid politician. She's a very, very sound debater. We've seen it when she was in the Senate, the kind of questions, the kind of grilling she was exposing some of these, Trump officials too. So, and she has a very, very firm foundation of ideas and knowledge in terms of administration and governance. And of course, the kind of missteps the Trump administration has made from 2016, I think I compiled in her head. So she'll be using them as missiles against Mike. So Mike is going to have a very rough day tomorrow. And I think it's going to underscore the weakness of the Trump ticket. And if things go according to plan, I expect that debate to actually swing more voters towards the Biden and Harris tickets. And of course, that is likely to lead to an eventual victory come November 1st.
All right, Abel Oyeyo there. He is an international relations expert, taking us through the latest and the top stories that have been making headlines in the continent and beyond this week. Let's take a short break here on Bottomline Africa, but do stay with us. Still more.